Hi everyone, my name is Natson Eyram, and I work with Crops Research Institute, and I'm in this team with Dr. Priscilla Francisco Ribeiro, Dr. Lillian Nkengla, then Professor Margaret Mangaheni. And this is a fallout of the activities from the seed grant obtained from GREAT. And so we're presenting on the dynamics of farm work, household duties, and field labor engagement for men and women in maize production in northern Ghana. Maize is the largest staple in Ghana, like staple crop in Ghana, and its significance when it comes to its contribution to consumer diet. It's one fact that we cannot emphasize because it contributes to it's the major contributor to the carbohydrate intake in the country. It does well mostly in the Guinea and Sudan savanna zones, which forms the northern part of the country, and it does well in these areas mainly because of the high solar radiations, the low temperatures at night, and the low incidence of diseases, which are very good conditions for maize production. Generally, agricultural research treats data obtained from men and women farmers, though they are same, without recourse to gender roles, gender norms that shape the activities of men and women in the household or farm related. It is on this backdrop that we focus on the exploration of the gender interplay between men and women in relation to household duties and field labor engagement. So the communities of focus were Gunsi and Salimpa in the Mion district in northern region, and in each of the communities we have focused on one. We had one focus group discussion for women and one for men, so making it two for each of the communities, hence 4 focus group discussions in all, and 7 members per each focus group. But then we feel comfortable putting the two communities together because they are the same tribe and they share common tradition, customs, and values. So moving from there, in terms of the results that were obtained, we are looking at the first one is household duties. So these were the major household duties that were outlined by the respondents. Both men and women agreed on these household duties as the most important household duties. That is sweeping, scrubbing, fetching water, bathing children, cooking, washing of clothing, and babysitting. So and this, I should state, is a mental construct out of the interactions that we had with both men and women. So it came out clearly that these household duties were the preserve of women. Okay, in society, the communities expected the women to be fully in charge of these duties and execute them without complaining because they saw them as their their rightful duties. Men, however, were called to duty, especially when there was shortage of water and the nearest source of water required the use of a vehicle, be it bicycle or let's say a tricycle or a motor bicycle. Then the men were called to duty. It is also interesting to know that after all this, the women were expected to go back to their own fields and work, or sometimes work on the husband's fields, or both. Go to their field work, come back to their husband's fields, and return home in time to fend for the family, especially for their supper. So after taking care of the family in the morning and they going about their duties, she has to go to the farm and do her own duties and get back in time to make sure the family is also fend for. And this is made clearer from this quote that we obtained from one of the respondents saying, in our culture, it is not allowed for a man to do household chores, so they do not help. They mostly do farm work, so the woman has to work and send food to the man in the farm. You have to do all the house chores and still work on your farm. So you go to the farm late and already tired. What can you accomplish? And you know you have to come back and cook and take care of the kids in the evening. So this just buttresses the point you are making, that in that community, this is the preserve of women, and men give a helping hand when they decide or choose to. They are not under any obligation. When it comes to the labor engagements in terms of family labor, realize that both women and men contribute a lot to family labor, but the men contributed more than the women. But we saw an increasing increasing proportion of contribution of the women, especially from harvesting and post-harvest. So you realize that earlier parts, they do not really contribute much, but when it comes to the post-harvest, you see an increasing, proportion for the women from harvesting right through to the selling of produce. And you also see as in less activities in terms of insecticide application, fertilizer application, and weedicide application. When it comes to hard labor engagements, the trend seems a little bit different. Not different per se, but then the men still dominate in terms of the roles, in terms of hard labor. But we can see that in instances of insecticide application, weedicide application, the women were not hired at all for that exercise or for that activity. They were not also hired for shelling, and they were not also hired for transportation. But this because for instance, insecticide application and weedicide application, they are seen as activities that require some level of precision. Hence, they think that the women may not have that, or sometimes they may leave these chemicals around and spill it, and the children may have access to them. So they keep them away from that. Shelling and transportation, they believe, is tedious and too much for the women. So if the men really wanted people who are efficient, that is per the interactions we had, then they would rather call for the men, because they are going to pay them for that, so that they get the best out of it. Drying and selling of produce was an activity that nobody hired anyone for. So in conclusion, all we are saying is that women are wholly responsible for household duties, and this has cultural underpinnings. Both men and women contribute to hard and family labor, but you saw that the women contributed more of their time to to family labor than hard labor. Then the women were not hired mostly for weedicide insecticide application, mainly because they felt it had needed some level of precision and vigilance, and shelling and transportation because they felt it needed some level of energy that they thought the women didn't have. So what implications does this bring? In terms of data analysis, what this one tells us is that we cannot treat men and women data from fields in the same way. So in order to really paint a good picture when we pick socioeconomic or other data from the field, we will need, or quantitative data from the field, we will need to understand or delve deeper into gender norms and values in order to create an accurate image, so that it doesn't look like the conditions that are available for the men and women are the same. What then implication does it have for breeding? It tells us that in developing technologies, we should know or outline these outline differences should help us to breed varieties that are suited for both groups, either for women or for men. Because in this case, then breeding varieties that are, for instance, early maturing will be something that will help the women more, and requiring less, or let's say a drought tolerant variety requiring less of time in order to cater for or to turn around would work more for the women or than the men. So that's the conclusion of our findings. And it is also necessary to also understand that in the end, these gender underpinnings are very necessary for our research work, and we cannot do things as we used to do them. Thank you.